Friday evening in Odisha. The chatter of passengers, the shuffle of luggage, and the hum of steel on rails paint a serene picture. Two passenger trains are closing in on a small station. Green signals glow through the evening, a sign to forge ahead. But within seconds, a costly mistake sends a passenger train on a collision course with a cargo train. The impact derails coaches, sending wreckage onto the path of another oncoming passenger train. In the blink of an eye, disaster unfolds, and hundreds of lives are changed forever. But what if those glowing green lights weren't the truth? What if, hidden in the system, a silent error was already sealing hundreds of fates? Let's find out. The tragic incident occurred near Bahanagar Bazar station, about 270 kilometers south of Kolkata, on the outskirts of Odisha. It is a crucial point along the busy Howrah-Chennai main line, one of India's most important railway corridors. Daily traffic here was heavy, especially during rush hours, with trains rushing past in both directions. Bahanagar Bazar station, which caters to nearly 1,000 passengers daily, witnessed a horrific disaster on June 2, 2023, when 3 trains collided, claiming numerous lives and injuring many, including students, workers, families, and other commuters. The crash left behind a scene of utter devastation, with coaches scattered around the area. Rescue efforts to save the lives of those on board were also met with a lot of difficulties. It was already getting dark, and a lot of people were trapped inside the derailed coaches. It was a sorrowful day in Odisha, which will be remembered for generations as one of India's worst rail disasters in the last 100 years. Survivors described the accident as a nightmare, giving first-hand narratives of their traumatic experiences. It was a scene of utter confusion and chaos, and they were happy to have made it out alive. With so much traffic rushing through daily, here's the haunting question. Was this disaster written into the system long before that evening? As the sun set below the horizon on June 2, 2023, the Coromandel Express cut through the air as it approached Bahanagar Bazar station around 6:55 p.m. The train was traveling from Shalimar in Howrah and heading southwards to Chennai Central in Chennai on the Howrah-Chennai up line. Around the same time, the SMVT Bengaluru-Howrah Express was traveling in the opposite direction from Suram Visvesvaraya terminal in Bengaluru. The train was bound for Howrah on the adjacent Howrah-Chennai down line. Neither of the trains was scheduled to make a stop at Bahanagar Bazar station that evening. They both received a green signal to continue along the main line. With both trains hurtling on the tracks close to their top speeds at 128 kilometers per hour, there was no room for emergency braking. Adjacent to the Howrah-Chennai up line lies a loop line, where a stationary goods train sits. This loop line is a branch of the main line that follows a separate, shorter route that later rejoins the main line. On this loop line sat a stationary freight train loaded with iron ore. At 7 p.m., the Coromandel Express should have passed straight through the up line. Instead, the electronic interlocking system wrongly routed it onto the loop line, where the freight train waited. A fatal error that triggered a chain reaction of devastating consequences. The passenger train crashed heavily into the stationary freight train. While the freight train remained on the loop line, the passenger train suffered the full brunt of the impact. The force of the collision derailed all 22 Coromandel Express coaches. 3 of the derailed cabs veered off the Howrah-Chennai up line and jumped right onto the adjacent down line. The Howrah Superfast Express had nearly crossed in the opposite direction, but the 2 unreserved coaches at its tail end were struck hard from the side and derailed by the Coromandel Express. The 2 coaches of the Howrah-bound train and 3 of the Chennai-bound train suffered the maximum damage and reported the highest casualties, according to officials. Was this really just a technical glitch, or the result of deeper cracks in India's railway safety net that officials don't want to admit? Partha Mukhopadhyay, an infrastructure expert from the Delhi-based think tank Centre for Policy Research, argued that it should not be possible for green signals to display on the main line if the track is set for the loop line. According to Mr. Mukhopadhyay, signal interlocking is supposed to be fail-safe, and the level of failure that led to the tragic outcome is unprecedented. Jayavarma Sinha from India's Railway Board said at a press conference that there was no issue with the interlocking system. She blamed the accident on some kind of signaling interference rather than a system failure. As the Central Bureau of Investigation started its probe into the Balasore train accidents, top railway officials stated that the crash was caused by deliberate human interference with the electrical system. They reached this conclusion because of their belief that the interlocking system is fail-safe. According to Central Bureau of Investigation official Ashwini Vaishnaw, if, for whatever reason, the system fails, all signals would go red, which would bring all the trains to a halt. He added that unless there is a deliberate interference in the system, it is not possible that a route that is set for the main line for a train is switched to the loop line. Sources also confirmed that the electronic interlocking system used by railways has SIL4 verification, which has a 100% safety rating. Two narratives began to clash, one blaming a system error, the other hinting at deliberate sabotage. Which truth would India's railways rather you believe? As the accident unfolded with train coaches tumbling off the tracks and smashing into each other, passengers on board saw the world turn upside down. Instant darkness engulfed the cabs with ballast and twisted metal slamming through the windows, effectively caging the passengers and closing off opportunities to escape. The force sent passengers stumbling as screams of shock and pain spread through the coaches. However, all hope was not lost. Within moments, locals from nearby rushed towards the wreckage, kickstarting frantic rescue efforts. These heroes tore through the doors and glass with their bare hands in a desperate effort to pull out the survivors from the derailed coaches. In that moment, it wasn't the railway system or the government that saved lives. It was ordinary villagers. Should we really be relying on luck and human courage when the system itself is supposed to protect us? It was a chaotic scene, with cries for help echoing through the night as torches and phone flashlights cut through the night. Finally, first responders arrived within minutes, weaving through the scattered debris and coaches to save everyone in the accident. The villagers didn't back down just because first responders had arrived. They aided the rescue efforts with buckets of water, bandages, and improvised ladders. In the blink of an eye, some villagers had formed human chains, passing survivors through the jagged windows. As the night turned darker, sirens blasted through the night with renewed hope as ambulances arrived at the scene. Without wasting time, the injured and overwhelmed are ferried away to clinics and hospitals to receive emergency treatments. At the sight of all the victims of the crash, the doctors and nurses scrambled to receive them. Off-duty staff were called back with immediate effect as the flood of casualties began to overwhelm the health workers available. What began as a routine commute had turned into a test of community, endurance, and humanity itself. But despite the prompt rescue efforts, over 290 lives were lost, and more than 900 others were injured. In the aftermath of the accident, focus had shifted from the rescue efforts to investigating the cause. By June 4th, 2 days after the tragic accident, investigations had finally yielded results. The chairman of the Indian Railway Board said that the electronic interlocking system was largely fail-safe. But this rare case of failure might have been caused by a damaged wire or short circuit. On the 6th of June, the railway minister affirmed that the Commission of Railway Safety, CRS, had investigated the matter and that the Railway Board had recommended a Central Bureau of Investigation-led probe. On July 7, 2023, the CBI gave details about the progress of the case. They had arrested 3 railway officials believed to have been responsible for the triple train crash. According to a CBI statement, the officials were identified as 1 technician and 2 signal engineers employed by Indian Railways. They were charged with culpable homicide and the destruction of evidence. The Commission of Railway Safety, CRS, also reported its findings. The CRS blamed the mishap on human errors made during the replacement of electric lifting barriers at Station 5 years back. CRS also flagged what they called lapses at multiple levels in the Signaling and Telecommunication Department. CRS said the disaster could have been avoided if earlier glitches in the signaling system had been addressed. Those issues traced back to errors made in 2018. The station master, who is also part of the operations department, was called out for failing to detect the abnormal behavior of the signaling control system. Calls for stricter modification and testing protocols were made by the CRS so that such an incident would never happen again. But here's the uncomfortable question. Were these three men truly responsible, or were they convenient scapegoats for a system plagued with deeper corruption and negligence? Rail safety is built on routines that never fail and signals that never lie. When that trust breaks, seconds decide everything. The lessons from Balasore are clear. Lock the logic, test the changes, and never route speed into a dead end. Because if signals can lie once, who's to say it won't happen again? Maybe tomorrow, maybe on your train ride. Thank you for coming this far with us. Kindly like this video and subscribe to this channel for more.